So welcome everybody to session 7 of the Smart Places Masterclass series on precincts and public spaces. My name is Luke Musgrave and I'm the Director of Smart Places from the New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are all virtually meeting today. For me, it is the Dharawal people down on the south coast. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and those emerging, and also extend that respect to anybody, any Aboriginal people here with us here today. So just quickly, some housekeeping rules for today's session. If I could please ask that everybody remains on mute, and just letting you know that this evening's event is being recorded and we will let you know where to access it at the conclusion of the session. Now, not that this is a competition, but and I might be a little bit biased, but I think today's masterclass is going to be the best out of all that we have. We've got 4 really remarkable presenters with us today to talk to us about how smart solutions can improve outcomes in public spaces and in precincts. And we also go on to discuss some real life case studies that have highlighted some of the challenges faced when seeking to embed a smart and a digital element into precincts and public spaces. As we move through the session, feel free to post any questions that you have in the chat. I will be monitoring that, and after we hear from our speakers today, there'll be a Q&A discussion when we can get a response to your question. So let me introduce you to our speakers today. We have Dr. Caroline Butler-Bowden, who is the Executive Director of Public Spaces in the new Place Design and Public Spaces team at the New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment. We have Vanessa Gordon, who is the Director of the Place branch in the Public Spaces Division of the New South Wales DPI. We also have Ali Dench, who is the Executive Director, Community and Corporate at Wallandilly Shire Council. And we have Sally Hamilton, who is currently the Director of Planning and Environment at the Sydney Olympic Park Authority within the newly created Placemaking New South Wales. Up first today, though, we have Caroline and Vanessa, who are going to talk to us about the creation of great public spaces and how smart initiatives can support that. So, but before I hand over to Caroline and Vanessa, I'd like to give you just a little bit more of an overview of them both, because they're both really impressive people to have with us here today. Caroline herself leads a team of strategists, policymakers, place managers, landscape architects, and project managers and storytellers to improve and shine a spotlight on public space in New South Wales. She leads the Premier's priority greener public spaces focused on quality and walkability to great public spaces. Before this, she was the Director of Strategy and Engagement at Sydney Living Museums. Spanning 20 years, her career has been dedicated to leadership to connect citizens and tourists to special places, the arts and heritage through a broad range of citywide public engagement programs, including festivals, exhibitions and books. Vanessa is an innovative leader working collaboratively to co-create great projects. She's worked across multiple government, philanthropic and not-for-profit sectors, including health, community, urban renewal and the arts to enable positive change for communities. Vanessa is focused on enabling great spaces that are green, free and accessible for everyone at the heart of social and healthy communities. Really, really important focuses there. So with that, I will hand over to Caroline and Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Luke. We're really delighted to be here. Something that Vanessa and I think about all day, every day, how we can create smart places with a focus on public spaces and precincts. So I'm really delighted to be here and thanks for the very generous introduction. So we're just getting our slides up, but really it's getting close to 2 years since the Public Spaces Division was established. And of course, we followed the announcement, the establishment of a Minister for Public Spaces. So a fantastic portfolio in New South Wales, really dedicated to what we like to call more, better, activated. More public space, better, as in improved public space, and activated, bringing that kind of programming aspect that Luke introduced, in his introduction to the work that we do. So, but of course, before I begin, I too acknowledge that today Vanessa and I come to you from Gadigal land, and given the work that we do, where we think about place all day, every day, it's incredibly important how we can connect with country through the stories and the places that we focus on, curate, and the rest of it. So I pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging. So what we've been doing is really working with on smart public spaces through really a great public spaces toolkit. So case studies, tools, and guides. What we like to say is that if we're not in the room, how can people go to our digital resources and draw ideas, inspiration, case studies, how-tos for the work that we do? A lot of it's built on the work that we've done to develop a public space charter, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And that was on public space, on public exhibition last year. But we've really enjoyed working with smart cities and looking at how we can investigate partnering on GovHack and how we can really embed or integrate smart places thinking in the 8 parks, for instance, and a number of the other projects that we are developing and delivering in New South Wales. So on to our mission and our objective, pretty simple actually. I like to say we want to make public space everyone's business. It's about that they're essential. They're essential like, you know, our hospitals, our schools, our roads. We need to think about them as essential infrastructure. They're at the heart of our communities. Of course, they're about local character, and they make it easier for us to be physically active, spend time in nature and connect with friends and family. They sustain our health and productivity and prosperity of places. And really our mission is there. It's about quality, green, open and public spaces. And it is about healthier, happier and more resilient communities. And of course, they're just words. So what we're all about in the team is about the projects, from pilot to legacy projects that actually demonstrate those very words. We're also part of a global conversation. We've got 2 international peers, Project for Public Spaces and GIRL, and we've added that Placemaking X to that. So we test a lot of the work that we're doing, and of course we're working along really to those UN goals, one of the 17 goals for sustainable development. They're a really important reference for us and very much focused on good health and wellbeing. We also work across government. We work across the 3 tiers of government, and really we work in partnership with local councils primarily. You know, they're the ones who know their communities best, and they're in the kind of provision of amenity and services. And of course, it's about libraries and parks in essence, but also more broadly streets and showgrounds and the rest of it. We work with the I suppose when we came in, you know, I'm lucky to work with Vanessa. She's one of the most extraordinary people I've ever worked with. And of course, she said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, Caroline. We just need to look across the globe to what's being done elsewhere. And so we borrowed and worked off as much as we could. And of course, that meant working to the UN definition of public space. And by that, we have kind of the 3 categories. Open spaces, I think, is the one perhaps best known. There are parks, playgrounds, our beaches, bushland, the rest of it. Public facilities are like our community places. They're the libraries and museums and showgrounds. And then our streets, which of course make up the bulk of public space. And we'll talk a little bit perhaps later about the work in streets. And I'm going to hand over to Vanessa.
Thank you so much. I thought I'd pose a question to everyone that's online, and if you're watching the recording later on, I'd also love you to note this down. We do have Menti, which I believe you are able to scan in or you have in the chat. But really thinking right now, like what 3 ideas do you have to support the delivery of more, better and activated public space that benefits the community? And I think keep that community benefit kind of keenly in your mind, write them down, keep them to hand. And then I think we're going to go through a few other ideas and concepts, and then we're going to check back in at the end about your thoughts on your original ideas. So 3 ideas would be great to hear. Fantastic. If we go back to the presentation, let me know if I have to share my screen again.
I think you just have to share your screen again, Vanessa.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Just doing it now. Okay. I'll talk as it's coming up. Okay, great. The target or the ambition and the goal that we were provided was to increase walkable access to quality public space. And this is across New South Wales. I think it's a really interesting proposition because it's actually quite complex. We are working in a complex system to actually deliver quality public spaces and better walkable access to them. I think we go right back to some of the research that was done in the 70s by Riddle and Weber about these kind of social wicked problems. I think it's really important to reflect on that idea because there's not one solution. And I think whether you're thinking of planning, designing, delivering, constructing, funding a public space or improving the public space you have, there are multiple small, medium and large changes that we can make to improve walkable access to quality public space. I've also been reading a little bit lately Mariana Mazzucato's mission economy. And what I think is really interesting about that is what we've seen post-COVID is a lot of people rallying around a shared why, a shared mission, and how we all contribute to it. So I'm starting to see the silos breaking down across government departments, across levels of government, between industry, community and government. And really, if the shared vision that we have is around great health and wellbeing outcomes for the community and the role that public space plays in that, what can we all contribute to achieving it? So I think that really big kind of how everyone gathered around to get the man on the moon, how do we have that big outcome thinking and gather around this kind of shared why? And the importance of the scalability. So it may be a small solution that we're thinking of, but it could have a big impact.
Yeah. So obviously key to that, how do we work together that it's not one solution? We've often talked about the kind of 5 or 6 moves that we make within the team. Everything kind of from systems change right through the advocacy and narrative. How do we tell the story of the difference that public space makes in people's lives? So at the core of that is the Public Space Charter that you can see on screen, and we can talk a bit more about that. 10 pretty straightforward principles actually, but something that people can work to when they're thinking about more or better or activated public space. We've also embarked on a Festival of Place. Well, we read about one in London. I thought that sounds good. So we've developed a kind of 365 day of the year kind of curated program. A lot of it's online, but we also do physical activities, and it's about, and how do we work with our other partners? Wonderful to work with places like Greater Sydney Parkland and Sydney Olympic Park and others to be able to deliver that. We also did things like the Ideas Competition, which we did with the Committee for Sydney and the Sydney Morning Herald, and we were inundated with the most fantastic ideas for public space, from streets to open space and the rest. And then other sorts of things we're doing is kind of $500 million actually now in projects across councils. And then another thing is building an online interactive platform. The dream was that everybody would have in their hand on their digital device what's within 10 minutes walk of where they are at that time. So that comes back to walkability, and really walkability is at the heart of smart cities and smart places. If we get walking right and walking our streets and our neighbourhoods and our precincts right, that's actually the definition of a smart city. Like, put the kind of technology to one side. That is one way to that's one obviously important component and lens, but really if we can get walking right, that's key to it. And then one of the things that we did that built on the charter work was that Fiona Morrison's team had developed Everyone Can Play, a deceptively simple sort of program really, which was a funding program for councils, but it was also a kind of a tool, a how-to. And she had come up with 3 really great kind of principles, and we've built on that with this. Key questions: am I able to get there? Am I able to connect? Am I able to play and participate? And am I able to stay? And how do we help that kind of idea of the free, open and accessible, which is really key to that UN definition of public space? And how can we make these tools sophisticated but as simple so that anybody, any a local group can use them, right through to state government?
And when we're thinking about walkability and how do we enable, great quality public spaces where people can they get there? Can they, am I able to stay? Am I able to play and participate? It's useful thinking about the opportunities across, the entire life cycle of public spaces. And of course, public spaces from our libraries to our parks to our high streets, which are those key places where people come and gather socially. So it's not just about having an event in a park, it's about where's the right place? How do you plan for the uses in this place? How do you get funding and demonstrate the case for the evidence for the funding, the design of that place, its construction, and then its ongoing management, successful management. And they're really, each one of these steps is just absolutely key in creating a really quality public space. This is one of the tools that we've developed. One of the first questions we asked when we came into it was 2019 when the team came together was, well, where are the public spaces across New South Wales? We realised that that was captured in a lot of paper forms. So we've worked really hard to get that GIS mapped where all the public space is in our e-planning portal. I really recommend that people go to the e-planning portal, have a look. It's an incredibly in-depth information and availability there, but open data. And we just want this to get richer and better. We'd love to be mapping in access points and all kinds of data here. So anybody, whether you're in industry or council or in the community, can go into an open data source that's GIS mapped and see where public space is across New South Wales. I put this up because I think it's really interesting. It's as much the process we go through as the output. And I think a lot of people working in smart cities and tech and innovation are really aligned with the idea of having to have these living labs. And we've seen that work really successfully overseas, these urban living labs that bring together diverse thinking. Examples from the Netherlands and Malmo in Sweden, and they really stimulate innovation and collaboration. And I think what's key to these has been they've been place-based, they test real-world conditions, they involve co-design and engagement, and I think citizen engagement is absolutely key in any of the work that we do. It needs to be designed for a user and tested with those users. Leadership and ownership and the recognition of a value of a partnership, and evaluation of the actions and the impact. So we're always kind of doing that quality improvement and reflecting back. And I guess the challenge is that these living labs and these precincts don't exist on their own. It's about what benefit do they give to the community? What is it about walkability? What is it about green? What is it about places to connect? And what role do public spaces provide in these precincts to enable those things? And of course, we've got our own examples in New South Wales and more every day. And we'll hear about some in the presentation. Of course, we've got what's happening in Newcastle and beyond. And I think these, the process of having these places, safe places for collaboration with multiple voices, including the community, to test ideas is really quite incredible. From the Sydney Science Park to the Darwin Living Lab to places in Canberra, we have extraordinary examples. So we don't only have to look overseas, but locally. But again, it's as much about that kind of process of design and co-design as it is about those outcomes and keeping a keen focus on what is the benefit to the community in this.
And of course, part of all of our work actually is about what did we learn from last year? I think we all learned a lot, and what we learned is that people love their public spaces. They could not have survived the year, indeed, without their local parks. They missed their local libraries desperately. And I think, we've got all the stats. We moved fast to do a survey that we brought out in early May, and we've measured it again a year on. And it really is about that growth in people wanting the outdoors. They wanted their public space to be in the sun and fresh air. They were using their parks and their streets far more so. And they cared about them and they thought about them, and they inundated us through social pinpoint of the places that they loved and the places that they wanted to see improvement with.
Great. And here's just an example as well of Street to Shared Spaces, which was a fantastic partnership project with, there's 48 councils now and about 52 projects. I think I've got the numbers right. But here's a great example of what you can see was that like I said, it's empty laneway, kind of a festival of bins and utilities, working with Parramatta Council to really make this place come alive. But this has led to another $1 million investment in this area in Parramatta. But they'll also be looking at how do they get people not only attracted to this area, but wanting to dwell. So it's about smart furniture. But it's as much about greening as well, and how they find areas for putting that in place.
Yeah, and I mentioned the Public Space Ideas competition. I really recommend you going to the website. They're incredible ideas in there for smart cities. It was a partnership with the Committee for Sydney, as I mentioned, and it was really about innovative thinking and ideas. And the publication it has got all the winners in there, but also other ideas that the jury found interesting. Includes the Clover Desk street furniture design with solar panels, connectivity and Wi-Fi, a digital placemaking idea to connect and enhance public facilities, and Sydney Summer outdoor co-working spaces, and a myriad of other ideas there and they came from, it was really interesting, we had kind of really big industry putting in for that competition right through to school kids, and it was just a go-to, I think, for anyone who wants to see what Sydney-siders, indeed Australians, think about their public space and where they can see improvements. Mm. And the other thing is, of course, the charter. I'm not going to go on about it. We don't have enough time today, but there are 10 principles. They begin with things like open and welcoming, community focus, local character and identity, safety and security, incredibly important. We heard that loud and clear through the engagement, and that makes it that the free and open and accessible part of public space is so critical. And how can we build that in through smart city thinking so that everybody feels welcome in these spaces, to a really simple principle, which is well managed. Great to have public spaces, but unless they're well managed, and how we can think about that management of them in a smarter way, it is great. And then I think we're almost there. One more slide.
Yes. Look, here's just another really great example, I think, with Liverpool City Council, and this is also in Georges River Council, where they're looking at some really neat interventions in terms of technology that's coming in. So I guess some considerations, and then we're kind of at the end around having, looked at the breadth of public space and what's possible. It really is about supporting access, inclusion and diverse communities, sustainable public space planning, management, maintenance, people's experience telling the story of place, helping people to navigate, feel safe, comfortable, while reducing clutter. And I think that's one of the big challenges that we have in this area. Supporting experiences and access to nature, and enabling the 30-minute, or in Melbourne, the 20-minute city, walkability and places to work. So I'd really like you to now go back to those 3 big ideas you had at the start, and everything that you've heard around public spaces. Please go into Menti and tell us, have those ideas changed? And what is your one big idea for how technology can support walkable and quality public spaces?
Okay. Thank you. I think we're going to hand back to you, Luke, at that point, but really look forward to the conversation that follows.
Thanks, Carol and Vanessa. That was really, really engaging. And I think, we've all experienced a renewed appreciation for our local open spaces and public spaces in the last 18 months. I know for me, with 4 young kids at home, not only did my kids enjoy it, but I certainly enjoyed the break that it provided. So keep your comments coming through, everybody. They're really good for us to be able to see, but also, we'll be able to take all this sort of stuff on board post-event and help us to be able to process and understand some of the the opportunities that we have. And I really can't let the opportunity pass to shamelessly promote the Smart Places Acceleration Program. There's some really good conversations around initiatives and things like that that can help support where, smart solutions could help support great public spaces. So if anyone does have any great ideas or is interested, please go onto our website and check out, the opportunities available through the acceleration program. A quick reminder to everybody that if you do have questions, please do drop them into the chat. I am monitoring it, and I want to be able to get back to that. What we are going to do is we're going to get I'm going to get Ali to jump on next to talk to us, and then we're going to bring all the presenters back on and have a little Q&A session. So drop in your questions, keep thinking about them, and we'll get back to them. So next up, we have Ali Dench. Ali is going to talk to us about a smart public space case study, and then jump into the work that Wallandilly Council has been doing to embed smart elements into the Wilton growth area. So just quickly, a little bit of an introduction to Ali. In her role at Wallandilly Shire Council, she's responsible for the oversight of community services and outcomes, technology, data management, customer service, tourism and small business development. Big long list there, Ali. Ali is also responsible for the coordination of the community recovery efforts if she didn't have enough to do, and initiatives for Wallandilly after the recent Black Summer fire event, flood impacts and COVID impacts in the Wallandilly Shire. So Ali, over to you.
Cool. Thanks very much for that, Luke. Hi everyone. Really privileged to be able to speaking to you today. Wanted to have a little chat about Wallandilly and our Smart Shire delivery. Like Luke, I'm sitting on presenting to you from Dharawal Nation, and would like to also acknowledge our elders that may be present in this this masterclass, and also acknowledge our elders of past and those that are emerging. So Wallandilly Shire is a little shire on the outskirts of the southwestern areas of Sydney. As you can see there, we're couched by the beautiful Burragorang Valley, and most of our shire were custodians for the water for the Greater Sydney area. So as I say, we're a little shire. We are about 250,000 square kilometres wide. We're a growing peri-urban LGA in Greater Sydney. Our current population is about 53,000. But we also have a lot of growth on our doorstep. We're expecting 15,000 new homes in the Wilton growth area, and there's also another potential 15,000 new homes in the Greater Macarthur area in Appin, which gives us a potential increase in our population of 100,000. So we're virtually going to be tripling in size over the next 15-20 years, which presents us with some challenges, but if not anything else, some great opportunities. So we are one of the 8 councils also in the Western Sydney Citydales, and we took the lead on the development of the Western Parkland City Digital Action Plan, which was developed in collaboration with state, federal government and the 8 councils in the Citydale process. And the Digital Action Plan has been a bit of a guiding document for us as well in Wallandilly when it comes to the development of Smart Shire strategies. There are 8 enablers within the DAP that underpin what we do, but the most important thing, and one thing I really would like to get across today, is that people are at the centre of all that we do, and it's about people and about the outcomes that we want to get for people. So we took this on board quite seriously in the development of our local strategic planning statement and our Smart Shire strategy. So we could see the reality of the growth coming and development from a number of planning proposals that have been received. And we also saw what was happening with our neighbour up in Camden and the wave of development. So we looked at how we were going to address some of the needs. We see ourselves as a dynamic shire, and we're looking at new ways to strengthen our local community. And with the digital age upon us, it's here, and smart technology, it again was an opportunity and also a challenge for us. We, with the Wilton growth area being identified and the development of the airport and being a part of the new Nancy Bird Airport, we identified that smart technology was a path to deliver capability to our community. the community's view actually was tested when we were developing our Smart Shire strategy in 2018. So in this strategy, we actually outlined how were we going to look at implementing technology, and that was in the strategy outlined that we used pilots and trials that would be used to build capability and determine what solutions really provided benefits for our people, for our residents. So it's about looking at those solutions that suited the place. And some of the examples of what we did to start up with was things like people counting, device counting, to see where our people are and where they move. We did that particularly with a lot of our events. So we trialled some things with our Illuminate Festival. We also knew that street smart lighting and EV charging, electronic vehicle charging, was coming down the line. So we looked at a pilot site in Walton Street, in the main street. But our main one I want to have a chat to you about today is Tilapia Park, in relation to what we've done with smart spaces and smart parks. So Tilapia Park is a little park down in Buxton, and you probably would have heard of Buxton through the last Black Summer fires. As you can see there, we've got our fire engine memorial site. We unfortunately lost two firefighters in the Black Summer fire down in the Green Wattle Creek area, of which Tilapia Park has a memorial to these two firefighters. And Tilapia Park was also seen as a great place for smart technology in an open space in a community that had been impacted by bushfires, and how we could enhance and help connectivity in that small community. So the park has variable mobile telecommunications and internet connectivity. As you can see there in the pictures, we've got a smart pole there with solar, and it also provides public Wi-Fi and boosts local mobile telecommunication signals as well. The public Wi-Fi system provides an ability to promote local businesses while providing the community an alternative internet connection method as well. There's also sensors installed in the park that now gives us an insight into the number of visitors and when the community uses the space. And as was said a minute ago about even during COVID, these technologies actually provided real benefits to us to understand how many people visit the park, and there was quite a significant amount of people who were using the park. Nice big open space during COVID. And it also told us what size groups were using the park, and even how many people were even using the hand sanitizers in the stations that were available in the toilets. So we can now provide our communities with information on the best times to visit parks, and which can be used broader, and also alerting them to times when it's really maybe too busy to go to the park to practice social distancing if there were any issues. So we also had waste bin sensors, which actually confirmed the high level of service our area maintenance staff do provide, and how often it assists us with a bit more efficiency of servicing the park as well, knowing when it was time for the bins to be emptied. Small, maybe a minor thing, but a big thing for us, and a big thing for the local community to ensure, as I said, that it's people-centred focused, that we're actually doing things that that were provided for our residents. So the critical step now is to have all that information inform our service delivery and space design going forward. Interestingly, we've been collecting air quality data at the park, and that's made us consider how to effectively communicate that information to the public so they're informed about changing conditions. So as I said, the insights gain informs discussions, particularly with developers in the area or in new open spaces. Also too, we're looking at how we actually look at vandalism issues down there as well, to assist. So just to give you a bit of an idea about Wallandilly and the growth areas, I've just popped a little map up there, as you can see, the size of the Shire. But our growth areas are those little white areas, Wilton down to the south east part of the Shire, which is quite a significant proportion of that growth area. And as you see a little bit further above that, above Wilton, is Macarthur. So it's a significant area that is going to be developed just to give you an idea, it's a greenfield site, open paddock. So that's what we've got to deal with. And so our vision for the new development was really detailed in our campaign about Wilton being a great town or no town at all. We were saying we need to ensure that we have a town that's digitally connected, that is well planned with lots of open space. So Tilapia Park was actually a bit of a pilot for how we might implement some smart solutions in the Wilton growth area through Council's adopted Wilton DCP or Development Control Plan, which has smart conditions of consent built in it. So our Wilton Growth Area Development Control Plan, 5.2 of that control plan was talking about smart places. And we embedded it within the control plan that we wanted Wilton to be digitally evolved and connected. And also we wanted to make sure that our communities were able to use technology and smart solutions, but to make sure it was appropriate and what people wanted. So smarter development, as we said in the DCP, will help to provide the best quality of life for our residents while minimising our impact upon our environment. And so to achieve the vision, we needed to introduce some fundamental principles into our planning controls. So there are smart place objectives, as I've just got up there on the screen. So we wanted to declare a minimum standards for communities being built in Mullumbimby. At the same manner that planning controls ensure community fundamentals such as access to water and workable drainage and sewerage, so too they can ensure access to digital connectivity and data on how a place functions. So this is the principle at the core of the smart places inclusion in the Wilton DCP and conditions of consent. The challenge now is how to achieve a minimum standard without taking away the ability to innovate or even propose new solutions. So this is why we've not been really prescriptive with what those conditions are. As the case is with other planning controls, and it does require ongoing dialogue, particularly with the developer and also with our community, and also making sure that the community that's moving in there, that their voices are heard. And this is one of the big challenges, but it's also an opportunity. So some of those smart places controls that we have in place are things such as baseline high quality access to fast internet connectivity, internet and fibre into parks and key open spaces, smart monitoring equipment to be provided wherever possible for water quality monitoring, urban heat monitoring, looking at the tree canopy cover and soil moisture content, and also looking at car movements around as well. Some of the controls around telecommunications provisioning, electric vehicle chargers and smart light poles. So there's more detail, a lot of detail in the development control plan. And that can be made, that's publicly available if anyone was interested. But these are the issues, the real issues, the challenges that we faced. And the biggest issue was about the absence of standard guidelines and specifications. And this is evolving, and there is a planning partnership through the Western Sydney City Deals that are currently looking at designs and specifications. And the timing of this has been a real challenge, but we have been working really, we've been fortunate to have a fantastic developer who has really got some great insights in this space. Been working together with them to look at what we can implement. So it's sort of been a bit like being on a surfboard in front of a tsunami wave that's starting to consume us with the growth. But we need to have some standards mandated, which we have been working upon. The other issues that need to be considered is connections not always available during the first stage, and that leaving these first stages of development with limited or no connection to quality internet and fibre connections is just not acceptable. So it's now mandated that we need a fast baseline internet connection, and it's critical to residents and businesses. But it's also a key requirement to then deploy key smart solutions and technology. The other issue to consider is internet connection is as essential to living as water and sewage connection. So, and it should be treated with as equal importance to ensure residents have access to internet from the time they purchase their lots and the time that they move in. Exploring the availability and the likely sequencing of connections has been a challenge. And it's also too that we need to make sure we have some interim solutions for lot owners when they move in. And we've been meeting and working through these issues with our developers to work through expectations, and have some great valuable learnings from this and some great insights. Smart solutions need to be embedded in planning, and it needs to be in upfront, particularly having platforms established. And thinking about interoperability. And interoperability is critical, absolutely critical. So solutions can be adaptable as technology also changes. And we found from the time we started, technology has changed quite significantly. So it's not just about the technology, it's about looking at the needs and what people want, and then matching up the solutions to that. So smart solutions for good community outcomes without too much overhead is another challenge or issue we need to consider. So how do we build a community that's agile without too much overhead? The known cost of development with a return on things need to be built into that, and what needs to be carried by the developer and what needs to be carried by council. And that's all part of our partnerships and our relationships to build smart connected communities. So as I said before, we're lucky to have a developer who's on board, that's really interested and really wants to see a great community built out there. Some others question why. Well, we're doing this because this is all about people. And as I said before, we need to be putting people first. So the way forward is about inclusion of smart place principles in strategy development, whilst building capability to use data in our operations. That's what we're doing at the moment. We're looking at how we can increase our capabilities and skill levels at the same time as technology is changing. It's about working regionally to achieve interoperability and working together, and engaging with communities to ensure that we continue to have a people-centred approach. And so this is what I believe local governments do well, in that we understand our communities, we understand the issues that people bring to us, and we look for those solutions, and technology is one of those ways in which we can deliver some of those solutions. So in conclusion, because I know we're running pretty fast on time, we continue to include smart place principles in our strategy developments through our local strategic planning statements, in our integrated water management and our picked and place plan. We ensure that it's built into those strategic plans that we have. At the same time, building our capability to use the data that we receive in our operations. We work regionally, and that's going to help us leverage and to look at testing and trialling in one area to be able to scale up into another. Because working regionally, we'll be able to achieve interoperability, and through engagement with our community. That's about all I had to sort of share today, but I definitely wanted to push home the point in regards to people at the centre of things is what's really important, and making sure that we're able to work with what people want and not giving them what we think they need in the smart solution spaces. So it's just a little bit of a case study there for you, Luke.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ali, and love that you're sort of emphasising putting people first. That's obviously one of the core elements of the New South Wales Smart Places strategy, and one of the actions out of the strategy being the development of a Smart Places customer charter that's happening at the moment, and that focus is really at the centre of that approach as well. And I really like the line in there about an internet connection is as essential as a water and sewer connection. I actually find myself often sort of saying that you wouldn't plan a new community without a water connection, and we should be doing the same, same level of commitment for a future focused digital connection. So really good. We have got a really awesome question. I'm going to divert from our sort of proposed run sheet to have a Q&A at the end, just because I think it's a fantastic question, and keen to hear your thoughts, Ali, and Vanessa and Caroline as well. And I know, Vanessa, you've already posted a bit of a response. Lynn, feel free to come off mute if you wanted to sort of put your question actually out in the open here. But I'm happy to also sort of paraphrase you in talking about how gender, and particularly a focus on women's safety in public spaces, how smart technology and digital solutions can actually assist in providing a safer environment for women. Ali, Caroline, Vanessa, keen to hear your thoughts on this one.
Well, I think Vanessa and I've just written a few thoughts. It is a really great question, and I think we have seen great leadership through Plan International and the Greater Sydney Commission. And, you know, as ever, it's wonderful to have a charter about women's safety, you know, and there is is it a truism? There is a kind of statement that if a place is safe for women, it's probably safe for everyone. So, you know, there's always a lot of debate. Is this just about women? It's actually about everyone feeling safe. But I do think there's an awesome opportunity with the 24-hour commissioner being announced. Mike Rodriguez, I know our team has met with him several times. I think there's a great opportunity for us all to work together on perhaps a couple of pilot programs or something that really talks to this, because what I do think, it's a bit like a Premier's priority. We're not going to solve it through one group alone. I think we will do quite a bit of this work with our Parks for People project, the 8 parks, and that's wonderful. And it really comes back to, yes, lighting is important. Yes, technology is incredibly important, but at the end of the day, it's having life in these places that will actually help with safety and people feeling secure and confident to come back out. And I think a lot of our research has pointed to that. But I'm sure Vanessa and others much more expert in this territory than I. But yeah, I think in working together, and what might be those pilot programs or something that test some of that thinking.
Yeah, and Luke, definitely safety for women in open spaces is forefront of our mind. That's why it's so important. Out in our area, we have we have a lot of black spots and limited mobile accessibility, and that's why when people say, "Why do you want free public Wi-Fi for?" Well, it's because it creates a safer place for people to be able to connect. We have spaces where there is no mobile connections whatsoever, and we found this during the Black Summer fires as well. People weren't getting any messaging, mobile connectivity wasn't good. So if we can enhance it through our open spaces to give people greater certainty and surety, that because everyone has a mobile device, everybody has one of these in their hand, and if they can connect and use that to be able to connect with someone, they feel a lot safer. Yeah, that's why we're pushing public Wi-Fi. It's why we're pushing people counting to know when people are there or not there, when's the best time to go, not to go, all those sorts of issues. So technology can really assist with that. CCTV can help assist with that, and how we use that in our spaces.
Thanks, Vanessa, Caroline, and Ali, and that's a really insightful responses there. And Ali, I just love that. It's really interesting, the response depending on where you are and your location, your particular dynamics of your community. You know, that I think a lot of people probably wouldn't put 2 and 2 together to think that, you know, free Wi-Fi is actually promoting a safer environment. You know, I think a lot of people just think that, you know, people can, you know, play online games on their phone in a park sort of thing, but, you know, it's about people and improving safety as much as anything. So that's really great insights there. We've got a couple more questions coming through, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to park them because I think there's some really good stuff coming from Sally as well, which will help with some of the comments that are coming through. So Sally Hamilton is an urban and environmental planning professional with over 25 years experience in strategic and statutory planning, sustainability, environmental management, placemaking and community engagement. Her career spans across federal, state and local government agencies, and she is passionate about sustainable urban design and delivering spaces and places that improve the well-being of the community, enhance social connections and demonstrate design excellence. And Sally is perfectly positioned to be able to give us some insights today around Sydney Olympic Park and their process around smarts. So Sally, over to you.
Thanks so much, Luke. And I don't think I am perfectly positioned, but what I'm going to do today is to talk about some of the things that's happening at the park and some of the challenges that we have found. But before I do start, I also would like to just acknowledge that I'm on Camaragal land and would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any Indigenous people who are with us here today, because of course today is the National Day of Sorry, or National Sorry Day, so a very important day as well. So Sydney Olympic Park. Today, Sydney Olympic Park is still the New South Wales premier event destination. We have over 10 million visitors per year, mainly coming to events at the stadium and Kudos Bank Arena. We have sporting events and lots of concerts. Over COVID, it was a very inactivated space, but our parkland saw a huge increase in numbers, and that goes back to what Vanessa and Caroline were saying, that, you know, it takes those sorts of pandemics or big issues that really go to show how resilient our spaces need to be. Sydney Olympic Park is, though, going through a bit of a transition. Apologies for these grainy photos, didn't transfer very well. But we have a master plan that was approved in 2018 to significantly increase the density and try and diversify the space of Sydney Olympic Park. A great opportunity for infill development, but sustainable infill development. So this really envisages about 10,000 dwellings, 25,000 residents, 35,000 jobs. But we've also just, in the last couple of years, been able to secure a Sydney Metro station at Sydney Olympic Park. So that will also go towards making sure that people have really great physical transportation connections to the park, and will increase again and give it some uplift, but also goes to our events. We'll be able to secure more events within the site and more people coming to those sites, because the precinct will be so easy to get to and leave. And I know that lots of you would have been to the Olympics as well. So that's sort of where our journey starts with the smart journey. So during the Olympics, or the preparation for the Olympics, there was a big commitment to the Green Games. And part of that was about innovation and being smart. It was being smart about the design in the first place, but then all of the materials that were being used and how we were going to integrate the innovation into all of the venues, into transport, into all of the athletes' village, so at Newington. And the Olympics really were the catalyst for thinking about Australia in the space of innovation, sustainability and smart communities. And coming out of that was the first tool around Green Star ratings. So after the Olympics, the Olympic Coordination Authority was disbanded, but the Sydney Olympic Park Authority commenced. And also at the same time, the Green Building Council of Australia commenced. And that the Green Building Council of Australia, their very first tool was the same that was used for the Olympics around the environmental guidelines to start, really thinking about how we make sure sustainability is integrated into design from the outset to minimise our environmental footprint, but to also create great public spaces and venues. And in 2002, the first SOPA annual report and the first corporate plan was creating a framework for a smart community. So it's slightly different to what we think about with SMART today. It was around events, sport, a healthy community, a learning community, a green community, and an intelligent community. So really all of those elements coming together to make a smart community, but not so much technology based, but pretty forward thinking, given that this was the 2002, developed in 2002, so nearly 20 years ago. But last year, we also achieved a 6-star Green Star community rating at the park. And that was, really coming full circle in this space to say, well, we were sustainable 20 years ago. We've had 20 years of development. What have we done in that space? And making sure that we still were up to the standards that we thought this space needed to be 20 years ago. In terms of our smart cities planning now, our smart places planning, it's really around, again, what Ali and Vanessa and Carolyn were saying around people first. So it has to be putting people at the centre and making sure that we're really making the customer experience better. And again, going back to the question, it's about making sure people are safe, particularly at a site like Sydney Olympic Park, where we can have hardly anybody on the site. And then we go into massive event mode. The Royal Easter Show, we can have 200,000 people on the site. And you've got to make sure that people have, physical space, but are going to be safe. And that, we can use information and data to make sure that we understand where people are and how they're being protected. And we do that currently through CCTV. It's about resilience and future proofing. We know that climate change is having a significant impact on the park in terms of rising sea levels, but also heat. Heat for Western Sydney is going to be our major impact. And so how do we start using smart technology and collecting data so that we can have great operational control over keeping our parks irrigated, making sure that we're using the data to understand what's happening with our mangroves and with water levels. It's also about competitive advantage. So making sure that we're making ourselves a place for people to invest, so that we're not just doing more with less, that we're using the data for great operating precinct where people really want to invest, both as developers or residents buying into the park, or people trying to come and use the public spaces. Improve connectivity and collaboration. So not just connecting with technology, which is absolutely important, as Ali mentioned, but the social connectivity as well, and being able to collaborate through social media, send messages through social media, protecting our natural environment. Again, it's touching on climate change, I suppose, but making sure that whilst we're always having the people first policy, our natural environment is integral to making sure that people are happy and healthy and safe, that we can manage our assets by using data and BMSs and understanding what's happening where. We can have really good asset management, which saves costs into the future. And again, going back to our metro opportunity, making sure that in our master plan review, to secure the site for the metro, that we have those really good planning controls that Ali mentioned in our new master plan to ensure that smart connections happen through each of the new developments. We have such an amazing opportunity with the redevelopment of the precinct. The smart initiatives that we've undertaken to date, 20 years ago, we had the home of the original smart pole. These are fondly known as the towers of power, but they create renewable energy. They provide public lighting and massive amounts of light, almost making it daylight during large events, keeping people safe. It's got CCTV, it's our public speaking system, it's got electrical connections so that when we have events and we have pop-up stalls or pop-up mini events around the stadium, people can plug in and be able to use that power. It's all individually metered, so then we can back charge according to the amount of electricity people have used during those events. More recently, we've moved into digital wayfinding. QR codes have become an amazing revelation over the last 12 months. We've known that they've always been out there. We've been starting to use them in our parks, but now that we know that people just can use them day to day, we're going to start putting more of those out and not having to take up the physical space of lots of signs. We also have the smart bins. So we've got 400 and something bins around 640 hectares of open space within Sydney Olympic Park. And again, that goes back to operational control, because you're not having all the trucks running around collecting the bins all the time, but also is good for public amenity and going back to that customer experience, because you don't want to have the waste trucks running around the parks all day. We're going through CCTV upgrades so that we can have clearer imaging and making sure that that's up to standard in terms of record keeping and keeping all of those files safe. LED street lighting smart control. So we've rolled that out across the whole public domain, and that has the capacity to be able to, we can turn up and turn down those dials so that we can change the level of light depending on whether we just need typical residential mode or whether we need to increase for an event. And we can do that from our control centre within Sydney Olympic Park or just from a desktop. So that's made things much easier. And also some fun things like our smart shuttle. So that's a driverless vehicle trial that's been going on in the park. And, you know, one of the, a bit scary really, hopping into a small minibus that has no driver. But anyway, it was lots of fun. Things that we have currently underway are, we've got a smart irrigation management for parks and cool towns. So this is a project in partnership with a number of universities and the CSIRO, and really trying to start to think about, whilst we have recycled water within Sydney Olympic Park, we want to be able to conserve that just as much as we do with potable water. So installing sensors across the park, being able to understand where areas need water and only sending water to those spaces, but also creates a cool effect. By keeping these spaces green, it means that there's more public open space and that people can have access to those space in a cool environment. GPT, well, that's gross pollutant trap monitoring, again, similar to the smart bin sensors, so that we know when we need to go and collect the waste out of the GPTs, instead of having the regular servicing that goes on, trucks going along and cleaning them out when maybe there's not a lot of rubbish in them. Then there's other things that may not really fall into the smart places definition, but really good ways of collecting data using our already existing outward facing platforms like our websites and social media, so that we can collect data to be able to feed back individualised information to our customers, so that they can really get, we can target that information. They get the information they want and they're not getting all the information that they don't really want or need. And also going through some BMS upgrades. So we're currently we're doing a big HVAC project in our aquatic centre. We're installing 1.4 megawatts of solar power. We're putting another 99 kilowatts of solar power on our athletic centre and 80 kilowatts of solar on our water treatment plant. And it's how do we start to make sure that all of that is integrated into our BMS, so that we can understand the total energy profile for the park and for Sydney Olympic Park Authority, so that we can manage that and monitor that over time to make sure that we're getting the decrease electricity consumption that we want, and therefore the greenhouse gas emission reductions that we want. We've committed to carbon zero by 2030. So we're doing a massive rollout of renewable energy efficiency projects, and lots of mechanical upgrades. And all of that information needs to feed into something like a BMS, that you can see that data up to date in real time to make management decisions and operational decisions as you move through. So for us, though, we're very, with the 640 hectares, we're small in comparison to somewhere like Wallandilly. However, we're a New South Wales government precinct, and so we're a really good place to be able to trial some of this stuff. So far, what I've found is that there's a lot of good intent and everybody really wants to get into this space, and we're buying lots of technology, and the street furniture elements of, they're so fabulous, and people just love them, very sexy sort of things to be able to do. So people are, happy to go and procure this sort of stuff, but I don't know that everybody understands what that means, and that, even though we want all of the connectivity that goes with that. We want to be able to collect all the data so that we can make decisions. We want to know what people are using. We want to know how they're going to use the space in Olympic Park, where are they spending their money, all those sorts of things, so that we can capture the data, put the right things in the right places for the right purpose. The other, we sort of don't have the capacity in-house either to understand the technology that we need, and that, how do we collect that data and how do we pull it all together so that it is a manageable, usable, piece of collected data that we can have on a dashboard that, we can make decisions for. And data sharing, New South Wales Government has lots of policies around record keeping. How do we make sure that we're not sharing data that we're not supposed to? And, how much is, again, with the privacy rules, so, not making sure we're not sharing any private information. Again, just with data, some elements, we just don't have enough data. We don't know really what we're doing. Some of it's managed on spreadsheets, some of it's electronic, some of it's on dashboards. And then others, we've just got too much information. We don't even know what to do with it. A lot of our systems are on SCADA. I wouldn't even know how to log into SCADA, let alone use it and make, informed decisions around managing something like the recycled water system. The lack of communication as well. So making sure that everybody understands what we're doing and when, and if we're not communicating between ourselves, we are, again, going back to that piecemeal approach, and we're not really getting a smart place. We're getting bits and bobs of pieces of infrastructure that are not really helping us in this space. Typically, or historically, it's been a lack of support and investment in smart cities. And so even though there's a lot of goodwill in the organisation, we haven't had a lot of support. And so we get distracted with other big projects like Metro or master plan reviews and things like that, general asset management. It also reminds me a lot of sustainability. Again, 20 years ago, sustainability principles were just not included as business as usual. We are pretty much at business as usual now for sustainable design and integration of sustainability across social, financial and environmental in everything that we do, particularly in New South Wales government agencies. It's just not even a question anymore. You just do it and you know that you're going to get value for money. Smart cities principles are not there yet. We just don't know enough about what we're doing in this space to integrate it properly into everything that we do. And again, I think Caroline, Vanessa and Ali all talked about rapid change. So there's rapid changing technology, there's rapid changing what people are wanting and demanding in this space. And so how do we keep up? Rapid change in development. But in terms of opportunities, lots of opportunities, because we've now got commitment from the New South Wales Government. There's the new New South Wales Smart Places Strategy and the Acceleration Fund. So that's really helpful, particularly for us, because we'll be able to use that as leverage to be able to start to think about how we create a coordinated approach to delivering a smart precinct. Sydney Olympic Park is one of those great places where we can really scale up or down. So with our irrigation project, we're using Bicentennial Park as our baseline. And then we'll be able to say, well, it's a significant space, but how do we now scale that into our streets for street trees, for cooling our cities, but also then take it out to regional centres and do massive spaces, across whole regional parks. All of this place-based knowledge provides valuable insights then for others to be able to use. So if we can trial and scale at Sydney Olympic Park, we'll be able to share that information and people can then use it in other spaces. I think the thing that we've found over the last 6 months in particular is that partnerships are really important and that you don't have to know everything. At the moment, the partnerships that we're creating, there's lots of different people from lots of different spaces, and I think getting together and sharing information and understanding what do we want and what's the end point, and then working out everything in between. You can't do it yourself, so get some great partners. There's lots of people out there in the technology space that can help. And yeah, just going back to our precinct strategy, making sure that there's a bit of a strategy, and Ali's is fantastic to make sure that what you're implementing goes to the strategy, that your actions are actually going to have outputs that create the benefit that you need for your smart precinct. And again, the opportunity is rapid change. So you know, there's so much interest in this space. There's so much interest in technology and keeping up to date with the latest technology. And so I think we've just got to grab it now, you know, really leverage that opportunity and use it as a way to start to implement some really great actions within Sydney Olympic Park, but also across all New South Wales government agencies and in the private sector. So thank you. That's me.
Thank you, Sally. And I love it that rapid change is a challenge and an opportunity, and can certainly see why. One question that I have, you talked about support and investment being one of the challenges that you raised. Just interested to hear a little bit more around, you know, where in particular that support or investment would be most valuable. Like, is it around capability development or particular infrastructure? Is there any more insights into that?
So it's both, and it's also, I think the support needs to come from the executive. Again, I just keep using the sustainability analogy. Historically, it was really hard to get people to invest in sustainability because the executive would just not say, you know, it wasn't business as usual. So you didn't really have that capacity to be able to justify why you would need it. There wasn't enough information about it. And again, with smart places, we really need executive level to understand it, to understand what it means for people, what it means for customers, so that they do invest in the organisation to be able to deliver smart places strategies and actions. It will give them a great return on investment. And so that investment needs to go back into, yes, the technology within the organisation, the technology in the precinct, but also the capacity of people and the training so that everybody understands, again, what they're doing in this. And when they do go and buy smart furniture, even though it's going to be great, you know, and a novelty, how is it contributing to the overall place goals?
Yeah, so really driving that authorising environment so you can actually progress with that. Sally, there's a question on the chat. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read it, and I'm going to ask Ali a question in the meantime.
Okay.
A question there from Rebecca around how councils and other agencies are seeking information about smart technology and sourcing the right tech to align to precinct plans for smart places.
Yeah, interesting question. It's all about sharing information and working together and working on a regional basis, so as to understand what technology is out there. We've had with the 8 councils in the city deal, we actually did a pitch fest, which was really a great opportunity to have a look at what type of technology was out there and what could actually be used. I think we need more of those. I think we need some more times to get together to actually have a look with the industry, working with the industry and partnering with the industry to see what is out there for us to be able to tap into and work into. There was a question too before, Luke, I'd like to address around funding, and seed funding is a very big issue to help to run some pilots. That's things like the Smart Acceleration Funding program is so important because it can help with that sort of seed funding to test and trial something, to then be able to allow the opportunity to start to embed it in your budgets in the future, and looking at where we make those efficiencies, how we can redivert our budget and redivert dollars to enable us to implement technology solutions on the ground. But a lot of time things don't get off the ground because it seems so overwhelming and too hard to fund to start off with. So seed funding is really, really important for great smart initiatives and different technologies implementation as well.
Yeah, it's getting that authorising environment inside the funding to be able to progress with some of those initiatives. Sally, I'm going to get back to you now, assuming you've had a chance to read the question from Giselle there.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that one?
Look, smart city, like the technology and data would be an amazing opportunity for protection of environmental assets. And the example that's used here is light pollution. We have recently undertaken a project on light pollution around Sydney Olympic Park, and we had to physically go out and map the places that were light, map the places that were dark. And we will do that annually now to see how things are changing and see what's happening in those spaces. Because of our commitment to Green Star communities and a 6-star rating, it means that there's certain controls around lighting, and so that's being integrated into our master plan to make sure that new development does meet with those planning controls so that we don't have significant light pollution. But if you had the technology to be able to monitor that over time and not be able to, not have to go out on site in the middle of the night, a whole team of people, the whole ecology team went out on site and spent a few nights doing this, how amazing would that be? It would, you really can see what the changes are over time in real time, and that information really provides the impetus to you can show developers, if they want to start putting all sorts of fairy lights and things in their landscaping and lots of lighting and signage at the top of their buildings, if you show them what that's doing to the light pollution around the site, that really does give them the information and the understanding of why we need to protect the spaces, and they will do it. If you had that information on hand, it is definitely something that you could leverage.
Mm-hmm. We're really only just scratching the surface of how these smart solutions can help to sort of build that evidence base to be able to protect endangered sort of species and animals and things like that.
Yeah.
Feel free to keep throwing some questions on. I've got a couple of questions myself that I'm keen to ask Vanessa and Caroline in particular. I've got one really interested in all the work that you've been doing around understanding the value of public spaces and to get your views on how digital solutions could help to embrace culture with a particular emphasis on sort of connecting to country and Aboriginal language and things like that, and how those solutions could actually embrace that.
Good question, Luke. I'm looking to my learning partner here if there's an obvious answer. I mean, it's a really good question and something that I know we are thinking about, particularly with the Charter and the Charter principles. Certainly we had quite a bit of feedback, didn't we, Vanessa, when it went out on public exhibition, and thank you to all the council colleagues in particular who I think fed back. I don't know. I'd need to think about it.
I think why I pause there is it's really a question for First Nations communities, and I think this is something that going back to our reflections on is as much about the process as the kit that you want to put in. In terms of recognising country, connecting to country itself. I know, I'm learning all the time what that is and what that means, and can't even pretend to understand the depth of that knowledge. So I think my point there is actually an incredibly, there is a depth to this, that if we engage proactively with First Nation people and let them lead that conversation, we would have quite remarkable outcomes.
That's a pretty awesome response, I've got to say, and apologies because I did put you on the spot there. It certainly wasn't a little Dorothy Dixon we had prepared, but really good. And I think it really echoes a lot of the conversations that we've had here today around putting, people and communities at the centre of it, strong co-design and co-production processes. And like you said, Vanessa, it's about the process more than anything. And one of the things that struck me in my time in this space is a comment that someone made around, we don't want tech for tech's sake. We want it to be actually producing outcomes. So you don't throw the tech in and then, it's the solution. It's actually, and Caroline, you mentioned it, maybe it's not something that's really techy. It can be smart and sustainable as long as people are at the center of it. So.
Well, I think people always go to technology when they think smart, and I'm not sure how we've ended up in that place, but it's certainly, and of course that is one, that's definitely one of the lenses, one of the components, no question. And I think Ali and Sally have described that really beautifully today through the examples that they've given, what some of the challenges and opportunities are. But it's always the combination, isn't it? It's the kind of experiences, the low-tech stuff as well as the high-tech. And I think if we learned anything through COVID, that was, It was actually getting back to the essential stuff of life that we kind of learn, and how we experience places and seeing our neighbourhoods and thinking about them through a different way. And I think all that stuff in Melbourne I read about really fascinated me, because of course, unlike here, they had that, you know, those draconian measures where they could only go within 5 kilometres, and it really shone a spotlight, I think, onto, you know, how smart was their locality actually in kind of offering all the different things that make up a great life, you know, a good life, and how you could get to those places, whether they were open spaces or their local streets or their local. So, you know, there's just been so much in the last year that it's not always about throwing money at something too. And I think the last thing I'd say is that we'll only get there too when we work in partnership. Like providing grants is one thing, and that's massive, and that's good that state government is doing a lot of that, but it's actually only in working cross disciplines, multidisciplinary teams, and in partnership that we'll probably really get to those better solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, and interestingly, I can't remember the exact wording of it, and Ian Opperman will probably yell at me for this, but the standard under the definitions for the smart cities, it doesn't reference technology. It's about sustainability and resilience and things like that. So you're exactly right, Caroline, and I think that sometimes that can get lost, the meaning around it, and sometimes I know in the work that I do, we sort of try and not say smart initiatives, but smart solutions, because it's a solution to a challenge that the community is facing. It doesn't have to be a tech or a specific initiative. So I've got, again, keep throwing your answers down here, but I'm going to keep asking some of my questions that I've sort of jotted down here. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to be able to chat to you guys. This is really good. Ali, I'm fascinated by your huge role that you have at council, and how it all fits together. And I'm sort of wondering, the sort of the bushfires and the recovery effort, and wondering whether you can see smart solutions having a role in emergency management or recovery, and have you sort of experienced it firsthand recently, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, definitely. We've just been fortunate to receive grant funding from the Bushfire Recovery Fund to provide free Wi-Fi in 3 of our major parks that were heavily impacted on the fires, and with digital community notice boards within those parks, interactive notice boards, because at the time of the fires, a lot of people didn't have connectivity. And if we can try and maintain it in a central location where people can get information, can see what the air quality is like, find out where people are going, where they're moving, getting some of those emergency announcements. That's one of the initiatives that we're going to be implementing as a result of that. Communication was one of the biggest issues through our recent Black Summer fires, and people knowing where to go and what was happening. Information is a big issue. So if we can provide it using technology in a way in which to provide that, because as I said before, we've got lots of areas across the Shire that don't have very good connectivity, and people do gather places where they can get information. That's what we want to do, and have it readily accessible. But we want to make sure that those solutions are the interoperability of those, so it links in with our systems at council. So as what Sally was saying, at a touch of a button, you can update things, and you can actually provide the relevant information at the relevant time. So we're using that definitely as a result.
Yeah, it's a really challenging environment, because the communities that are usually most at risk in some of these sort of bushfires things are the communities where there is the biggest lack of communication and things like that, and accessibility, those sort of things. So you can really see there's some opportunities there.
Yeah, and we're actually going to be using the technology to help in preparedness as well, not just as emergency response, but also in our recovery and our preparedness issues. have you got your bushfire emergency plan? We can put up stuff on the notice boards. And did you know that our recovery, we've actually got funding for a mobile recovery hub, which will have technology attached to it as well, which will go out to those parks and open spaces where people can gather, and we can talk about preparedness and those sorts of things, and use technology to help develop people's plans of what they would do in a response. So we're using the technology to find this, to provide those solutions for people when it comes to communication and information.
Yeah, fascinating. On another sort of theme, Ali, a lot of the challenges that you raised, I have to say, yeah, there's quite a few. So some people might be looking at going, geez, that's, you know, how do we overcome that? But I was sort of thinking, if you had to prioritize, you know, one that you thought, or one or two that you thought would make the most difference in sort of progressing, particularly talking about Wilton and some of those challenges, and you know, what would be the one that you would focus on?
I think, what would I focus on? Are you talking technology-wise?
Well, just anything in terms of how you're trying to embed the smart sort of agenda within Wilton, the growth of new communities. So in terms of that process of going through that process, you know,
yeah,
what's probably if you could only focus on one, what would make the biggest impact?
It'd be changing our strategies, making sure it's embedded in our strategies and in our planning documents, because then they become the rules. They become the policy by which that we've got to implement things. So yeah, definitely, as I said, the start of our DCP, making things so as if you want to do something in this area, these are the outcomes that we need to see. Making sure our strategies have smart solutions embedded within them. That's person-centric. That's going to give the outcomes for people. So yeah, it's making sure it's embedded in our policies and our rules.
And I think Sally probably put it very similarly when you said it's not BAU. Sally, is that kind of the same sort of nuanced sort of response as what Ali's talking about?
Yep, absolutely. And as I mentioned, you know, we've got a master plan review coming up, and so that will be an opportunity for us to start to put in planning controls to make sure that the smart principles are integrated into our master plan planning controls for development that's coming in the future. But again, the strategies, policies that we need to integrate into our own organisational development that needs to happen. But having access also to Caroline's team, and also you know, your team, Luke, with the DPI Smart Acceleration Fund, it makes it a partnership model where you can start to be a bit more coordinated across agencies, rather than everybody feeling like they have to go it alone, that we can use each other's information. That as I said, you know, Sydney Park's a great pilot precinct. It's fully government owned, so you know, we can trial any of Vanessa's and Caroline's pilot projects on site, make sure they work, and then we can take them out to the broader community. But it's getting it into our planning documents, into our planning controls, strategies and policies, so it can become business as usual. Yeah,
and the requirement now, or the resulting from the requirement now for councils in New South Wales to have a local strategic planning statement, is really need for you know, local councils to, you know, think more strategically, because, you know, I have worked in local councils before, and sometimes that does become a challenge, particularly from an authorising environment point of view, not necessarily a staff point of view, but having that strategic oversight, I think is probably an opportunity moving forward as they start to get reviewed and start to see the value in embedding that smart element within the strategic planning, and then as you sort of both have said, sort of cascading down through to yeah, the other elements and the more detailed elements where you get into those conversations around the standards and the interoperability and things like that. So yeah, which is another minefield, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a challenge, Ali. So I'm just flicking through the chat here. Haven't had any other questions come through. I did probably what I might do is just to give everybody another chance to be able to ask a question, and if there are any more questions, that's okay. I think we're all quite comfortable to you know, leave it early rather than just sit around and talk for another half an hour. I'm sure everyone's probably got you know, other commitments, like their kids knocking on the door and things like that, wanting their dinner. But what I might do is just quickly just sort of go back around with with each of our speakers today, and just sort of get them to give us a sort of, you know, their sort of parting comments, I guess, in this space. And I think we've already probably heard a lot of the key sort of insights. I could probably summarise them all, but I'd be keen just to get from everybody else, you know, I guess they're kind of their key takeaway from today in terms of moving forward. I guess from these masterclass series, what we want to do out of this is we actually want to be able to have this inform our work program. So in terms of moving forward, what is it that us within the New South Wales government can really focus on to be able to progress, either to overcome some of the challenges or to be able to leverage some of the opportunities?
I might just quickly go first in that, going back to our excellent panel's comments previously, is that I think I have definitely overthunk it, this whole space, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel, that there are people out there who can help. And so I think what we'd love, Luke, is for a coordinated approach. So almost how do we create something where we know the right people to go to, and we can create partnerships where we're filling gaps that are appropriate and can help everybody involved and not compromise the outcome for anybody. And therefore, if we had something where Deepa could help us link the right people with in the right teams for the right projects, that would be amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Ali, yeah, sorry, go Caroline.
Oh, I mean, for us, it comes back to our kind of key moves, really, for public spaces more generally. You know, we're all about what can we test through pilot projects that lead to long-term kind of legacy. You know, how can we test it? They might not always work, but how we can work in partnership to be able to deliver them. And I think that is very much the kind of mindset, really, of how we work across all our projects. And I don't think there's anything different with the particular challenges and opportunities for kind of smart city thinking. I think going back to the essence of what we're trying to achieve is always critical in all the projects. And indeed, on Friday night, we're going to Kingswood for the launch of Places to Love. It's not an expensive project. It's about 130,000, and it's about how do you create safer a walking area. You know, it's a place between the railway station, the hospital, the university, you know, the sort of a very suburban set of streets, actually, but safety was kind of quite important as being a place that women didn't feel particularly safe. So just working in partnership with Penrith City Council. I know our team has learnt a huge amount, actually. And yeah, how we can do those kind of quite tactical, practical projects to test things right through to the kind of big scale systems change. Yeah. Vanessa, do you want to add?
Oh, I think, you know, the other panel was really picking up on what Sally Lee said around kind of people-focused partnership.
Yep.
But also, you know, it doesn't have to be something that boils the ocean. It can be something that we just that we trial and test, but do in a way that's collaborative. I think also listening to Ali and great presentation about the diversity of New South Wales. I think, you know, that we tend to get a little bit kind of Eastern Sydney focused. Eastern was at the harbour focus. But there is this, you know, incredible opportunities in terms of smart thinking and solutions in regional and rural areas as well. I'm sure they'd love some help with, and we talked about COVID, but you reminded us it's been, I mean, what a 12 to 18 months we've had: floods, bushfires, COVID, mouse plague. Like, it's, you know, my family out west on properties are, it's just quite extraordinary. So we have these incredible challenges that that reflect on a global scale, but might actually be something quite small interventions we can test and trial.
Yeah, look, great. Can only reiterate what you've said. A lot of it is about working together as you say, we're not in this alone. If we all think that only we can provide solutions, we're crazy. It's about us all working together, but making sure smart principles or smart place principles are actually included in strategy development, because that's then going to ensure that it becomes BAU, as what Sally has said. Interoperability and people first. So again, it's about making sure that you know what people want and then go looking for the solution. Don't let the shiny bells and whistles divert the attention. Yeah, it's about, as you say, smart, simple things that can be the great solution. But Luke, all I can say is, from our perspective in Mullumbimby and with the Western Parkland Councils, the support from the department has been fantastic. The partnership and the collaboration has been brilliant. And I think we need to see a lot more of that across all the levels of government for us to enable things to happen. I think there's still too many silos out there. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. There's too many bloody silos where the different departments need to be working together and ensuring that we're all on the same roadmap to how we can provide these solutions on the ground. Otherwise, we're going to waste opportunities and waste resources where we're doubling up on things. Our Western Parkland City Digital Action Plan is the roadmap for that collaboration. And I can only, again, strongly suggest people have a look at that action plan, because it talks about how we build our digital fitness, how we are responsible with data, how we're partnering for success, because we can have lots of solutions on the ground, but people don't know how to use them, are not digitally literate. We've got to also think about how we bring the vulnerable along with us, so no one is left behind. I think that's what's really important, so we have a real inclusive society. Otherwise, we're going to have a place where people haves and have-nots, and that's why it's so important we provide these opportunities in our open spaces and our precincts for people to be able to be included and connect.
Ali, in just hearing you speak, I was reminded deep in COVID of Kirsten Fishburn, who of course was running Liverpool City Council at the time, and she said, you know, the role of libraries for those who are the most vulnerable in society, they're often the only place that they can connect to the internet, where they can come and, you know, that they're places that are warm, that there are toilets. But it was the thing of that digital connection that these libraries provided. And it was incredibly moving at the time. And, you know, it was just that thing that these public spaces, these institutions can often provide many more things than that are kind of the most obvious reason why a lot of people who've got money and they've got time and the other sorts of things use them for. Anyway, I was just reminded in you talking about that.
Well, it's like not having access just to Wi-Fi or not having that connection. And if we can put in those connectivities into our open spaces and parks for people to be able to do that, you know, that's a huge benefit and a huge outcome. A lot of our libraries actually run what we call senior savvy workshops, so as to ensure digital literacy is there. We need some strategies around digital equity and inclusion, and that's where you'll find a lot of our local councils who have community development teams advocate on behalf of our communities in that regard. So there needs to be a lot more work in that space to ensure that we don't have a digitally divided community.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
I think that's a really, really amazing way to wrap up for today, to be honest with you, like that concept of inclusion and equity. And again, it just comes back to the concept of having people at the centre of everything that happens within a smart place. Really, like, so I'm prepared to wrap it up there, not because I'm not enjoying this conversation. This has been fantastic, and I'll still put it out there to my fellow facilitators with other classes that I think that this is the best one. I think we win, absolutely.
High five.
Luke, I hope you don't say that to every single one of them. We'll have to check with the other presenters. But that's very kind of you, and you are an expert. Vanessa and I were talking about how fantastic you are at chairing these and the preparation that you put in. So
That's
you know,
very
I
kind.
feel
Yeah,
it's
thank you.
neutral. Thank you.
That's very kind. So they are all recorded though. So if you wanted to go back and double check, you can go and see. That you know, absolutely, this is the best one ever. And we could probably sit here for hours, and I could just not say anything, and you guys could talk, because it's been fascinating hearing that conversation go back and forth. But yes, finishing on that note about equity and inclusion, I think is really important. And I really connecting the country and how, you know, that's got to be an essential part of the process. So thank you all. So a special thanks from me and you know, everyone else involved in these masterclasses, to Ali, Caroline, Vanessa, and to Sally, but also to everybody that's tuned in today tonight. I hope you've really enjoyed it. There are some links being thrown into the chat at the moment about the presentation slides, so you can have access to that. Also a link to where the YouTube channel where the recording of this one, but all the other ones are uploaded. Should be there in a day or two. And there's also a link to register for the next masterclass, which will be next week on cybersecurity. There'll be 2-3 more to come after this. And then also just to flag with everyone that we'll be sort of culminating the masterclasses in a Smart Places Summit, which will be held towards the end of June. That we sort of hopefully be launching some more details about that coming soon. But please do look out for that. Join in on that. That would be really, really fantastic. So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great night.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
I think I learned more than what I gave.
Bye.
Sally.
Thanks.